Hi. So welcome for our RTL online training. Now we'll talk about the interview questions for financials here, which we are going to have it. Yes, Karthik, tell me what is meant by supplier merging? What is meant by merge suppliers?
Supplier merging is combining two suppliers into one supplier, and
Okay.
it will happen in two cases. One is when we have duplicate suppliers, we merge the supplier. Another case is when one supplier acquires the another supplier, we merge it.
Okay. So once the supplier merging is happened, what will happen for the existing supplier? Is it deleted or is it exist in the application?
It will be disabled. We can see the supplier, but supplier side will be disabled. We cannot do any transactions with the old supplier.
Okay. So old supplier will be exist, is it?
Yes, sir.
So what will be the status for old supplier?
It will be in a disabled mode. We cannot
disabled,
do any.
disabled mode means where do we find that?
We can search in manage suppliers, but we can see the name, but we cannot do any transactions with it.
How the system will come to know, yes, for this supplier, we cannot do the transaction. For this supplier, we can do the transactions. How the system will come to know it? By seeing which field?
Supplier site.
No? Supplier site is there, right? And there is a field called supplier inactive.
Yes.
The existing supplier will become inactive, right?
Yes, sir.
So that we have seen practically, right?
Yes,
we have already seen after supplier merging, what will happen for the existing supplier. Existing supplier will become as inactive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, Sunanda, what are the setups required to configure prepayment invoice in account payables?
First, we have to enable this. We have to enable show available prepayment in invoice options.
Okay.
After that, we have to create prepayment invoice.
Okay.
After that, we have to make the payment process.
Okay.
After that, we have to create a standard invoice and we have to apply the prepayment for the standard invoice.
Okay. So you said we need to enable show notifications. Without that setup, can't we create prepayment invoice? Without that setup, can't we create prepayment invoice?
We can create, sir, but we get a notification that we have.
For example, I don't want a notification. I just wanted to have only transactions. Can't we do that?
We can do, sir.
Okay. So whenever you are going to make the prepayment, can we change the payment term? Can we change the payment term while creating prepayment invoice? Generally, prepayment, when we are creating the prepayment invoice, we'll find the payment term as immediate. I would like to have a different payment term. Can we do that?
I don't have any idea, sir.
You need to cross check.
Okay, sir.
How about the foreign currency invoices? In case if we want to configure foreign currency invoices, what are the setups we are supposed to perform?
Foreign currency, first we have to set the daily rates.
Okay.
After that, we have to enable the multi-currency option at bank account level.
Okay.
After that, we have to create an invoice with foreign currency. That means if we are using USD, then we have to create INR's foreign currency. It is a foreign currency for USD, so we have to create an invoice with INR. And after that, we have to make the payment also in INR. Both
Is it
are
only INR or USD? What is functional currency and what is foreign currency?
functional currency means, for example, if our business is in India, other than
Okay.
Indian currency, others will be foreign currency, sir.
Okay. For you mean to say that functional currency is nothing but a local currency, is it?
Yes, local currency, sir.
Okay. Can we go for define the bank only for a particular legal entity? I want to define a bank only for a particular legal entity. It's basic thing, right? Whenever we are implementing financials, bank configuration we have to do, and it's again, as a functional consultant, it's our responsibility. My requirement is I want to create a bank, and it should work only for this particular legal entity.
Yes, sir.
Can we define like that?
We can define, sir. I mean, actually, it is the owner of the bank. So,
No, I'm asking only bank. So I want to create a bank and make this bank is available only for a particular legal entity.
yes, sir.
Do you find any legal entity field at the time of creating a bank?
No, sir. No, sir.
So how we can assign this bank is only for this business, this legal entity?
At the bank account level, sir.
So you said yes, bank we can restrict for a legal entity. Bank account is different and bank is different, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For example, when we are creating bank account without business unit, can we save the bank account? While creating the bank account, we'll give the legal entity.
Yes,
So
sir.
that legal entity is the owner for that bank account. Bank
Yes,
and
sir.
bank branches both are global. Across the legal entities, it will be available. And now, once we give the legal entity, then I have not given the business unit. Will it allow us to save the record?
It will allow us, sir.
So without business unit also, you can save the record.
Yes, sir.
You can cross check once.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Ravi.
Sir,
What is mean by credit memo and debit memo?
debit memo means purchase returns. When we are doing purchase returns, we use debit memo. Credit memo, other than the purchase returns like discount or any other invoice.
No, you are trying to give the example. I'm asking exact definition, not example.
This debit memo is purchase returns.
Sorry.
Debit memo is purchase returns, and credit memo means to reduce the invoice value.
So you meant to say that credit memo and debit memo both are not negative or negative?
It is negative values.
Both credit memo and debit memo.
Debit memo and credit memo both are negative values.
Okay. So in which what is the purpose of creating the credit memo and debit memo?
To reduce the invoice values.
To reduce the invoice value or to reduce the invoice amount?
Invoice amount.
That perfection is expected from the functional consultant, right?
Yes, sir.
From the functional consultant, when we are giving a definition, because the functional consultants are the persons who will be interacting with directly our business users. Means we are directly interacting with our client. We must have a clarity in the definition. Credit memo and debit memo both are negative invoices, which we will be using to decrease the supplier liability. To decrease the supplier liability, we are going to use.
Okay.
So instead of using the invoice amount, we will use these words, supplier liability. These all are the technology which we are using, Fusion applications, so professional, like official words which we are going to use, right? So these all things are required.
Okay.
What are the what is mean by payment term?
Payment term means it is a due date of the invoice, sir. To maintain that
Sorry, come again.
payment term is due date of the invoice, sir. We can create due date of the invoice through payment term, like.
Okay. Payment term is used to calculate the invoice due date. We are creating invoice. For that invoice, we are attaching the payment term. What is the purpose? I want to calculate the invoice due date. While creating invoice, we are going to give the invoice date, right? So I want to calculate what is the due date, means what is the last date we are supposed to pay for this invoice. So for that, we are going to use payment term. Payment term is going to be preparing. It's going to prepare the invoice due date. It's going to set the invoice due date. Okay, I would like to set the invoice. For example, we are creating invoice today. It's 11th November 2022. I said payment term as 5 days. It means from today onwards 5 days. It's going to be 16th November 2022. My requirement is whenever we receive the invoice from the supplier, from that date I want to calculate the payment invoice due date. Where do you configure? By default, it will take whatever the invoice date you are giving. But my requirement is we received the invoice from the supplier yesterday, 10th November, and I am creating the invoice today in the system. But my payment term should calculate the invoice due date when the invoice is received from the supplier. That date I want to take up. Where do you will configure it? Where you will go for configure it?
Only automate the purchase order, sir. From purchase order, we have to decide we can make the payment term as a.
No, not the purchase order. Whenever we receive the invoice from the supplier, that supplier invoice receiving date I want to consider for the payment term.
Okay.
So where do we configure it? Can any other people tell this?
Pay on receipt, sir.
Pay on receipt. What is pay on receipt? What is mean by pay on receipt?
Pay on receipt is when we enable the pay on receipt at the time of receipt, automatically the invoice will be created against the receipt.
Okay. So, but now I need pay date. See, in invoice options, pay date basis. Here you are going to have payment term date. Based on the invoice date you want to take up, or based on the invoice received date, or based on the system date, or based on the goods received date.
Okay.
Here we are going to set that. Right now, the question which I have asked is invoice received date. When you are received the invoice, that system has to take up default. Of course, if you want to change, we can change. Whatever the setups we are doing in FSM, these all are applicable by default for the transactions. But still, it will allow us to make the changes. Okay. Next, Madhavi, what is meant by distribution set? What is meant by distribution set?
Distribution sets are automatically created for invoice that are not matched to the purchase orders.
No, that is completely wrong actually. Distribution set is used to distribute the invoice amount to the different accounts. While creating invoice, we are entering the information at 3 levels: headers, lines, and distributions. Header level, we are giving the invoice amount. Line level also, we are going to specify the invoice amount to the item cost, freight charges, like miscellaneous, like that. There, we are going to give the distributions, nothing but accounting combinations. These accounting combinations, we would like to go for generate automatically. In that scenario, we will be using the distribution set. So what is meant by distribution set? Means distribution sets are used to distribute invoice amount automatically to the different accounts. In some clients, what happened? They wanted to distribute this invoice amount in a fixed price. Whenever they receive an invoice from the suppliers, they wanted to distribute that 50% to this account, 30% to this account, 20% to this account. Instead of entering all those accounts at the time of creating the invoice every time, instead of manual entry, what we will do is for that particular distribution, we'll create one distribution set, and then we will go for attach that distribution set at the time of creating the invoice so that it will automatically distribute. That's what the answer we have to explain. We have already discussed, right? So these all definitions are very, very important. Okay, you need to prepare a separate notepad for every question and answer, whatever explained in the video.
Okay.
It is very important. Then only we can clear the interviews. Whatever the videos I have explained, you have to listen the video and prepare question and answer. Question and answer, you have to go for prepare for the definitions. Because when we go for an interview, they'll ask you, tell me the steps, like theoretically. They will not all ask us to configure that practically, right? So definitions, especially with official words, which are very important for this. Okay. Yes. Sweta, what is supplier model?
Supplier model is nothing but work area of supplier.
No, what I'm asking when I say supplier model, my question is supplier hierarchy. For example, if we want to capture the supplier information, what is the hierarchy or what is the model we are using?
We should go for first profile, then we'll look at address and site alignment, assignment.
Okay, after that? After site assignment, what is the next?
We will go for payment method.
No, payment method will give at the time of supplier site level itself, right?
Okay, side.
We are going to capture the information, supplier address, supplier site creation, supplier site assignment, then supplier contacts, then supplier bank account information, supplier bank accounts information, and then we are going to have supplier qualifications. This hierarchy is required. Can we go for assign the supplier to the particular business unit? Make sure that this supplier should available only for this BU.
Yes, we can give.
Where do we give? Is supplier is global or supplier is restricted only for a particular BU?
We can give global as or we can give particular business unit also.
So you will give particular business unit only supplier site, right? So here you have to think supplier is different, supplier address and supplier sites. Three are different, we have to think. Only supplier sites we can restrict for a particular BU, but supplier is a global.
Okay.
While creating supplier, will system ask you, can I assign this supplier to BU? It won't ask, right? While creating the address also, it won't ask us. Only while creating the supplier site, it will ask us, assign this site to the particular BU or multiple BUs, either one BU or multiple business units. It means supplier is a global, supplier site is not global. Supplier site is org specific, nothing but business unit level it's going to be assigned. That's why when you search a particular supplier, you will get supplier name. There might be 4 or 5 sites, but when you go for your invoice page, supplier name will come, but sites, you will get only the sites which are associated with your business unit, whatever BU you are working.
Okay.
Yes, Saidulu, if I want to create an invoice, do I need to be a buyer? Is buyer is mandatory to create an invoice?
Yes, sir. Buyer is required.
So without buyer, can't we do it?
No, sir. We cannot create.
Have you tried any time?
No, sir. I didn't try.
Try it after this session.
Okay.
Just hire employee. What are the roles required to work with account payables?
Accounts payable manager, accounts payable specialist, accounts payable supervisor.
Okay, what are all these roles? What are the what type of roles all this?
These are to be used for business unit.
No, I'm asking whatever the role names you specified, all these role names comes under which category? There are 4 types of categories, right? Role categories like job role, duty role, data role, abstract roles, like that. All these roles,
a
whatever
job
you
role.
mentioned, it
Job
comes
role.
under which category?
Job roles.
Okay. So once the role is assigned, do we need to run the LDAP process?
Not necessary, sir.
So when it is mandatory, LDAP process?
LDAP process, it's required to GL, general ledger assigning.
No? When it is required?
By creating a new user or the employer assign the roles to the employer.
You have to use, like, I'm not asking the navigation part. I'm asking the exactly which action happened, that time we need to run the LDAP process. I said, I asked you, once we attach the role to the user, do we need to run the LDAP process? You said no, that's correct. If you attach the role to the user, no need to run the LDAP process, automatically roles will be applied. So when we required to run the LDAP process?
Like reference data sets. Okay.
No. Yes, Karthik?
When we give the data access for the roles, sir.
Data access.
When we give the data access for?
Roles like supplier manage. Sorry.
No. I'm question. Your answer, I need to rectify. I would like to correct your answer. Whenever you give the data roles, data access to?
Data access for the business unit.
Can I say,
So
sir?
whenever we give, yes.
Data access for user.
Data access for user and role combination.
Yes, sir.
We are not giving the data access only for a particular user. We are giving the data access for user and role combination. Whenever you are giving the data access, you are selecting first username, next role name, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, you are giving this data access for user and role combination. It means when that user login and select that particular role from the navigator menu, right? Role means from the navigator menu only, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes, sir.
from the navigator, whenever user select that particular role, then this data should be populated. That data may be business unit or ledger or inventory organization or reference data set, whatever the security object, doesn't matter, that needs to be populated. That's what so we are giving the data access for user and role combination.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
Yes, Sweta, why we required LDAP process? What is meant by LDAP? What is the description? What is the abbreviation for LDAP? What this program will do?
Sir,
What is the abbreviation for LDAP and what this program will do?
lightweight directory access protocol.
Okay,
Uh,
what this program will do?
mm,
Have you seen
It
any
can
time
locate
when you select LDAP process? Have you seen any time the description of that program? What it will do? I hope you are able to view the screen, right? Can you read this? Your program, what it's going to do?
retrieve latest LDAP
No,
change.
description.
Okay. So users roles and the role class with.
So what system is trying to do here?
Sorry, I didn't understand. I think
It's
so.
going to synchronize the user's roles and grants information. It means we created a user. For that user, we added the roles.
Okay.
While creating the roles, there are some grants. All this information system is going to synchronize.
Okay.
It's going to combine. It's going to combine that. That is what LDAP process is going to happen. Generally, when we are working in the real time, it will be scheduled for every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or we can run manually one by one. Yes, Sunanda, what is bills payables?
Bills payables is nothing but a future dated payment, sir.
So while creating the bills payables, for example, we have created a payment method. While making the payment to the supplier, we are going to choose that payment method, right?
Yes, sir.
At the time of making the payment, whenever we choose the payment method, which is enabled as a bills payables, then it will allow us to give the maturity date, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
But that maturity date automatically should come after 4 days. Where do we will set up? I don't want to enter the maturity date. It should take automatically 4 days. For example, today I'm going to make the future dated payment. It should take automatically 4 days. 4 days in the sense 15th November, it should take automatically. Where do we do that setup? Generally, we know that when we give the payment method, it will allow us to set the date, but it won't take the default value, right?
At the invoice level, sir.
No. Invoice level, what you will set? Do you have the option to set the maturity date? I don't want to set the maturity date. It should come default.
No, sir, I don't know, sir.
Can anybody tell?
We creating
Sorry?
payment.
Come again.
Yeah.
While creating the payment method, we are going to enable the bills payable. There is option here, maturity date override.
Yes,
If I
sir.
mention 4, it takes. Enter the number of days to add to the payment date, which recalculate a new maturity date automatically.
Okay, sir.
So after this session, everybody has to try this, so
Okay,
that
sir.
it will be remembered. You can easily remember this here. Yes, Karthik, what are the steps required to calculate the interest invoice?
We need to give the interest invoice in invoicing options and the account. We have to allow interest invoice and account, and we have to give the interest rates, and we have to assign to the supplier, like allow supplier side, we have to allow interest invoice, and then when we create and pay after the due date, the interest invoice will be created, sir.
Yeah, we did around 5-6 times, right? Interest invoice calculations.
Yes,
in our last assignment session. So the way of explaining should be fast. See, if somebody is not having good communication, if they are taking time for explanation, then it's okay. When we are already having good communication, we are not able to tell faster way, means they feel that in the interview you are not an experienced consultant. You just got trained. That's what. Because when we are applying as 3 + 4 years of experience, even though if you tell the answer is wrong, sometimes nobody can be perfect 100%. All the questions, nobody can give the answer. But at least you have to have some flow. That flow is required, right?
okay, sir.
Yes. So in which scenario interest invoice will be created? We know that interest invoice will be automatically created, right? Can we create interest invoice manually?
No, sir. Interest invoice is a system generated one.
In which scenario?
Yeah, when the payment dates are missed and when the payment is made after the due date, the interest invoice will be calculated, like created by the system.
Okay, so whenever you create any invoice, if the invoice due date is over, the interest invoice will be calculated. That's what you are telling.
Yes, sir.
So it won't check any other conditions. Just it will check the invoice date is over or not. Is it?
It will check, sir, if the if these options, like if the interest invoice is enabled and at the supplier side and at the options, invoice options, then it will create invoice.
Interest invoice. So you mean to say that the interest invoice will be automatically created if the invoice due date is over, and also supplier site level if interest enable is.
Yes.
Is that you are trying to tell?
Yes, sir.
Can we enable the interest invoice at supplier level or supplier site level?
We have to enable it supplier site level, sir. In the
we
invoice
don't have the option. We don't have the option at supplier level, is it?
Supplier profile level also we have the option. No,
Yes,
we
sir.
don't have, sir. We don't have, sir. At supplier site only we have.
Okay. So supplier site level, what is the navigation part?
We need to search for the supplier and go to supplier sites, and in supplier sites, go to supplier site assignments. There you will find invoice options. In the invoice options, you will have allow interest invoice calculations.
Invoice option we don't find in the supplier site level, right? Site assignment level, supplier site level only. Site assignment is completely different.
Site level, sir. Sorry, supplier site is for a business unit. Site assignment.
So yeah, that navigation, why I'm asking is in the interviews they'll ask us to go for these questions, but not, they won't expect each and every option what we were doing it here. So important, like interest invoices, withholding tax setup, and where do you will set the pay group, where do you do the payment method. So this they will expect these navigations exactly in which tab it will be specified. Where is this options, so that so we have to be very clear. Supplier site level is allowed, or supplier level it is allowed. These all questions they will be asking us here. Okay. So next, what are the steps we will follow for supplier data loading by using FPDI Ravi? What are the sequence of steps we have to follow for data loading in FPDI?
We have to download that.
Yes, you can unmute. Remaining people can mute and you can unmute. Yeah, please.
We have to download a template from Oracle OER.
Okay.
And we have to collect data from business, which we have to upload over the data. We have to enter over there. And we have to create CSV file from data templates and upload CSV file through UCM. We have to populate the data from interface table, and we have to import the data. That's all.
Okay. You have done practically, but you are not prepared for interview. How to answer that? That is not, you have not prepared. So what we have to say that whenever we want to work with the FPDI, first we need to download the FPDI templates. Once we download, then we need to fill the valid data in that. After filling the data, then we have to go for prepare the CSV and zip files. Once we prepare the CSV zip file, then we have to upload this zip file into server. We'll run the program, load interface program, by selecting import process, import supplier, for example, and we'll choose the zip file name. Once we submit this program, data will be loaded from our CSV files into interface tables, and we will cross-check that data is loaded into the interface tables or not from BI environment. We'll write a query, select statement. By using the batch ID, we'll try to search. Once we have a data in the interface table, then we'll run the main import program. That main import program is going to validate the data is valid or not, which is available in the interface table. From interface table, it's going to validate the data and load the data into the base tables. In case if there are any errors, it will show the error report. According to that, we'll go for modify. And once we have the data in the base tables, then we can see that data in the front end. This is what we have done in the last time, right? In our last assignment.
Yes.
The same thing we have to explain. Whatever we have done, that we have to explain. We did multiple times. We did supplier, we did supplier address, we did supplier site, we did supplier site assignment. So all these steps, the same thing. Definitely they will expect the name of the program, load interface file program, and what are the parameters also. Batch ID we have to give, import option we have to give, and file upload. And after that, they will definitely expect whether data loaded or not. How will you test it? We'll test it from interface table, where BI environment. So when we are giving the explanation, it should be a practical oriented, like the way of flow. So what we are not doing something, we have not, preparing like a social subject, right? So we are not preparing theory. Why I'm calling it as a social subject is, in social generally will prepare theoretical. So here what we are trying to do is, we are trying to get this practical, whatever we have done, that practical oriented, we have to go for explain. Okay. Next, what are the withholding steps we will perform for withholding tax setup, Karthik?
We have to create a supplier as tax authority. Then we have to create tax codes, withholding tax codes, and we have to create payables calendar. After that, we have to create withholding tax codes. Second one is tax options, sir. Sorry. Now we have to create codes, and after that we have to create withholding tax group or classification. Then we have to assign the tax group to the supplier.
Okay. For example, we have discussed, yes, Sunanda, while creating the invoice, the interest invoice will be created, or while making the payment, interest invoice will be created.
Yes, sir.
Which scenario it will be created at the time of? Are you clear my question?
No, sir.
So we discussed that interest invoice will be created, right?
Yes, sir.
So in which scenario it will be created? Means at the time of creating the invoice itself will be created, or at the time of making the payment, invoice will be created?
After making the payment, sir.
So after making the payment, system will calculate the interest and it will go for create another invoice for that.
Yes, sir.
Is that so? It is not created at the time of creating the invoice.
At the time of payment. At the time of payment only, sir.
Yes, because at the time of creating the invoice, system doesn't know when you will pay, right?
Yes, sir.
So when you are going to make the payment only, that time, okay, it has got delayed and the supplier is going to calculate the interest because we enabled that supplier site level. Then it's going to ask us, it's going to generate the invoice. Interest invoice will be generated. Okay. Yes. Can you tell the sequence of account payable setups? For example, what are the main setups we have to perform to create an invoice right from the steps?
First, we have to give common options, sir. It is the main setup.
But before that, an enterprise structure, business unit, and ledger must be exist, right? So it means
Yes,
enterprise structure needs to be configured, right?
yes, sir.
Yeah, you need to explain that. What is enterprise structure? Flow of the enterprise structure.
Enterprise structure means where the employee data will be stored. I mean, or all
What
the
is
business.
what is the flow of enterprise structure?
Firstly, an enterprise. After that, divisions. After divisions,
First enterprise, next division, next legal
primary
entity,
ledger.
next
Primary ledger.
business unit.
Next.
Okay, the legal
Primary
entity will be
ledger,
associated with the ledger. Okay, next.
Okay, legal entity. After that.
So after business unit, what we will perform next? Your business unit is ready. Your BU is already assigned to the legal entity as well as it is assigned to the ledger. So what next step?
Common options, sir.
Okay.
After that, we define, we create a reference data set.
Okay.
After that, we define payment terms. We assign
Okay.
our payment terms to reference data set. After
Yeah,
that,
go ahead.
we have to assign our reference data set with a business unit. We have to, after that, we have to create our procurement agent as a buyer. After that, we have to assign our we have to assign supplier manager role to the user. We have to give data access for user and run an LDAP job. After that, we have to create supplier setups. That means we have to create a supplier address, site assignment. After that, we have to create, we have to enable supplier approvals. After that, we have to create bank account. That means banking setups. That
Okay,
means
I'll
create.
give the answer. Let's prepare that. So if they ask us, tell me what are the steps, setups you will perform if you want to implement account payables, we need to say that first we'll be having enterprise structure. An enterprise structure will have a business unit which is associated with the legal entity and ledger. And whenever we go for manage business unit set assignment, we need to enable the account payable, invoicing option and payment option checkboxes. Then we have to go for common options for payables and procurement. We need to configure the accounting options over there, liability account, discount taken, miscellaneous account, bills payable account, rounding currency adjustment. Then after that, we have to go for manage invoice options where we need to set up the payment terms, invoice default currency, invoice payment default currency, and also we'll be specifying other options over there. Then we'll go for manage payment options and we'll do the payment setups. Then we will go for hire an employee from managed users, and then we'll go for add the roles which are related for the supplier, like supplier manager, account payables manager, account payables receive supervisor and specialist. And after that, we'll go for data access and LDAP process. And then we'll try to log in and make the current employee as a buyer. And the buyer can start creating the supplier. And then we can go for create an invoice for the particular BU, which is associated with the buyer. So this all options we have to be clear. Okay. So when we are explaining, we have to set that options so that they'll recognize, because all these screens every day we are going to see that, right? Every day we are going to do this setup. When I give the assignment, we are doing every day, right? So this all we have to explain. We have to explain at the same time, make sure that it should not go beyond 1 minute. When they ask some detailed, lengthy question, it should not go more than 1 minute. Otherwise, what happened? It will be boring for the interviewer when they are listening. If it is a short answer, generally 15 minutes or 15 seconds or 20 seconds. If it is a long answer, maximum 1 minute, not more than that. So we have to go in that way. Okay, so let's prepare. Again, we will have, this is just our starting point in account payables. This is a very easy interview questions, what I have discussed, mock interview. This is very easy questions. I have not gone through the in-depth. This is very easy. Basics I have asked. Next level, by Monday, we are going to have the in-depth of account payables. It is. Okay. Thank you.